In the heart of the untamed wilderness, where the ancient trees whispered secrets and the shadows held dark mysteries, 3 chilling tales of horror unfolded. These stories revolve around hunters who ventured deep into the wilderness, seeking adventure, glory, and the thrill of the hunt. Little did they know that the forests they entered held secrets far more sinister and ancient than they could have ever imagined. From encounters with ghostly stalkers to the haunting of a remote hunting lodge and the vengeful forces of nature itself, these tales will lead you into the heart of darkness, where the line between the natural and supernatural blurs and the consequences of one's actions in the wild can be terrifyingly profound. Haunting in the heart of the forest, the ghostly stalker. Deep within the heart of a dense ancient forest, where the trees stood tall and their branches intertwined to create an impenetrable canopy, a seasoned hunter named Samuel ventured on a cool moonlit night. Samuel was a rugged man, accustomed to the eerie silence and darkness that enveloped the woods. But tonight, he would experience something that would haunt him for the rest of his days. Samuel had been tracking a particularly elusive deer for days, following its trail through the wilderness. He was determined to claim the magnificent buck for his trophy collection. As he crept deeper into the forest, the chilling stillness of the night weighed on him. The only sounds were the rustling leaves and the distant hoots of owls. The moon cast an eerie glow on the mossy ground, creating a surreal atmosphere. Hours passed, and Samuel's patience was wearing thin. He knew he was close to his prey, but the darkness of the forest seemed to close in around him. Suddenly, he felt a strange sensation, as if he were being watched. His instincts kicked in, and he froze in his tracks, his senses on high alert. The forest was unnaturally quiet now, and the air felt heavy with a foreboding presence. Samuel's heart pounded in his chest as he slowly turned around. There, among the trees, he saw a figure. It was a shadowy, ethereal figure, barely visible in the moonlight. It had a ghostly, translucent quality, and its eyes glowed with an eerie light. Samuel couldn't believe what he was seeing. His instincts screamed at him to run, but he was rooted to the spot by fear and curiosity. The figure seemed to glide closer, moving effortlessly through the underbrush, its gaze fixed on Samuel. As it drew nearer, Samuel could make out more details. It was a spectral being, draped in tattered, ethereal garments that billowed in an otherworldly breeze. Its face was twisted in a grotesque, menacing grin, and its eyes never left Samuel's. Panicked, Samuel finally found his voice and shouted, "Who are you? What do you want?" But the figure remained silent, its grin widening, and it continued to advance, drawing ever closer to the terrified hunter. Samuel knew he had to escape this ghostly stalker, or whatever malevolent force it represented. With a surge of adrenaline, he turned and sprinted through the forest, his heart pounding and his breath coming in ragged gasps. The ghostly figure pursued him, its malevolent presence seeming to grow stronger with every step. Samuel ran for what felt like an eternity, stumbling through the undergrowth, his mind racing with terror. Eventually, he burst out of the forest and into the open, gasping for air. The ghostly stalker did not follow him beyond the forest's edge, and Samuel collapsed to the ground, trembling with fear and exhaustion. To this day, Samuel could never fully explain the encounter he had in the dense forest that night. He never returned to those woods, and the horrifying memory of the ghostly stalker haunted his nightmares for the rest of his life. It was a chilling reminder that sometimes, deep within the shadows of the natural world, there are forces beyond our comprehension and beyond our control. Whispers of the Wilderness, the haunting of Silverpine Lodge. In the remote wilderness of the Northern Rockies, there existed a hunting lodge that had been passed down through generations of hunters. The lodge, known as the Silverpine Lodge, was nestled deep in the heart of a sprawling forest, far from civilization. It was a place where hunters gathered to pursue their passion for tracking and hunting game, away from the distractions of the modern world. But little did they know that the forest held secrets darker than they could have ever imagined. One crisp autumn morning, 5 hunters gathered at the Silverpine Lodge. They were a diverse group, each with their own reasons for seeking solitude in the wilderness. There was Jack, a seasoned hunter in his 50s, who had been coming to the lodge for decades. His grizzled appearance and sharp eyes made him the de facto leader of the group. Then there was Sarah, a wildlife biologist who wanted to study the local deer population. She was passionate about conservation and saw the lodge as an opportunity to gather data and contribute to her field. Jim and Linda were a married couple, seeking a break from their busy lives in the city. They were relatively new to hunting, but had been lured to the lodge by the promise of adventure and tranquility. Finally, there was Ethan, a loner who kept to himself and had an air of mystery about him. He rarely spoke about his past, but his skills with a rifle were undeniable. The first few days at the lodge were idyllic. The hunters roamed the forest, tracking deer and bonding over campfire stories. But as the sun dipped below the horizon one evening, they began to notice something strange. Unnerving sounds echoed through the trees, strange rustlings in the underbrush, and distant, haunting howls that sent shivers down their spines. Jack dismissed their fears as the usual sounds of the wilderness, but the unease in the group persisted. Sarah's data showed an unusual pattern of deer movement, with the animals avoiding certain parts of the forest. Jim and Linda reported seeing fleeting glimpses of something large and shadowy moving through the trees. Ethan, however, seemed unfazed by it all. He continued to hunt with an eerie calmness, his eyes never betraying any hint of fear. The others couldn't help but wonder if there was something he knew that they didn't. One evening, as the group gathered around the campfire, Sarah voiced her concerns. "There's something out there, something unnatural," she said, her voice trembling. "The animals are behaving strangely, and I can't explain it." Jim and Linda nodded in agreement, their faces pale with fear. "We've seen something too," Jim admitted. "It's big, and it moves silently. We've never seen anything like it." Jack, always the voice of reason, tried to reassure them. "It's probably just a large predator, like a mountain lion or a bear. We'll keep our guard up and stay safe." That night, they barricaded themselves inside the lodge, clutching their rifles tightly. But as they lay in their sleeping bags, the eerie sounds outside grew louder and more unsettling. It was as if the very forest itself was alive with malevolent energy. The hours passed slowly, and sleep eluded them. Just as they were about to give in to exhaustion, a blood-curdling scream pierced the night. It was Ethan. They rushed to his room to find him wide-eyed and trembling, his rifle pointed at the window. "I saw it," he stammered. "A creature like nothing I've ever seen. It had eyes that glowed in the dark, and it was watching me." Fear spread through the group like wildfire. They realized that whatever was out there was not a mere predator, it was something far more sinister. With their nerves on edge, they decided to make a desperate attempt to escape the lodge and the forest that had become their prison. They gathered what supplies they could, including food and their rifles, and headed for the forest's edge. As they ventured deeper into the woods, the feeling of being watched grew more intense. The haunting howls and rustlings followed them, and they couldn't shake the sensation that they were being herded deeper into the wilderness. Hours turned into days as they struggled to find their way out, but the forest seemed to conspire against them. Their supplies dwindled and their hope waned. It was during one desperate night as they huddled around a dying campfire that they saw it. Emerging from the shadows, a towering figure with eyes that glowed like burning embers stepped into the dim firelight. Its elongated limbs and gnarled features were unlike any creature they had ever seen. The hunters raised their rifles, their trembling hands failing to steady their aim. But the creature did not attack. Instead, it spoke in a raspy, otherworldly voice that sent shivers down their spines. "You trespass in my domain," it hissed. "Leave now, or face the consequences." Terrified and desperate, the hunters retreated, stumbling through the forest in a daze. They eventually stumbled upon a road and were rescued by a passing motorist who took them to safety. The hunters never returned to the Silver Pine Lodge, and they never spoke of their harrowing ordeal to anyone. They couldn't explain the malevolent presence that haunted the forest, nor the creature with eyes of fire. But one thing was certain: the wilderness held secrets that were best left undisturbed, and the memory of that night would haunt their dreams for the rest of their lives. The Curse of the White Stag, Nature's Revenge. In the heart of the dense, ancient forest, where the towering trees loomed like ancient sentinels, and the underbrush was thick with secrets, a solitary hunter named Jacob ventured out on a fateful autumn day. Jacob was a skilled and relentless hunter, known for his ability to track and capture the most elusive prey. But on this particular morning, he would encounter a majestic creature that would change his life forever. Jacob had heard whispers among the local hunters about a legendary beast, a creature of unparalleled beauty and grace, a white stag. It was said to be a rare and mystical creature, believed by some to be a guardian spirit of the forest. The mere sight of the white stag was said to bring both fortune and tragedy, depending on the intentions of those who pursued it. Driven by greed and the desire for recognition among his fellow hunters, Jacob became obsessed with the idea of capturing the white stag. He spent days meticulously studying its tracks, learning its habits, and plotting its movements. He believed that the white stag's magnificent antlers alone would make him a legend in the hunting community. One crisp morning, as the sun's first rays pierced the forest canopy, Jacob spotted the white stag grazing in a small clearing. It was an ethereal sight, bathed in the soft golden light of dawn. Its pristine white coat and majestic antlers glistened with an otherworldly beauty that left Jacob breathless. Jacob's heart raced with excitement and anticipation. He slowly raised his rifle, his fingers trembling with a mixture of fear and greed. His instincts told him that this was his moment, his chance to capture the legendary creature. He steadied his aim and pulled the trigger. The shot rang out through the forest, shattering the morning stillness. The white stag let out a haunting, mournful cry before collapsing to the ground, its life extinguished. Jacob approached the fallen beast, a triumphant grin on his face as he gazed upon the magnificent antlers that would surely make him famous. But as he reached out to touch the antlers, a sudden, bone-chilling wind swept through the forest. The leaves rustled with an eerie whisper, and the once picturesque clearing turned dark and foreboding. Jacob's sense of triumph was replaced by an overwhelming sense of dread. A voice like the rustling leaves and the sighing wind echoed in Jacob's mind. "You have taken that which was not meant to be taken," it whispered, cold and haunting. Jacob spun around, but there was no one to be seen. He felt a deep unease settling in his chest as he realized that he had trespassed into a realm he did not fully understand. The forest itself seemed to come alive, as if it were watching him, judging him. With the white stag's antlers in hand, Jacob hurriedly left the clearing, the weight of his actions heavy upon him. He had expected a hero's welcome when he returned to the nearby village, but instead the villagers shunned him. They spoke of an ancient forest curse that befell those who harmed the white stag, a curse that brought misfortune and suffering. Jacob dismissed their superstitions, believing that the white stag's antlers would bring him the recognition and wealth he desired. But as days turned into weeks, his life took a dark turn. His once thriving hunting business dwindled, and the forest seemed to conspire against him. Game became scarce, and his luck in the woods had all but disappeared. Strange occurrences plagued him. He would hear whispered voices in the wind, and his dreams were filled with haunting visions of the white stag, its mournful eyes filled with reproach. He began to suffer from a relentless sense of guilt and paranoia, believing that he was being hunted by some malevolent force. One moonless night, as Jacob sat alone in his cabin, a chilling presence filled the room. The air grew frigid, and the walls seemed to close in around him. The antlers of the white stag, which he had mounted as a trophy, began to emit an eerie, ghostly glow. The voice that had haunted him in the forest whispered in his ear once more, "You have taken that which was not meant to be taken, and now the woods demand justice." Jacob's heart raced, and he reached for his rifle, but it was gone. Panic set in as the walls of the cabin seemed to close in on him further. Shadows danced in the corners of the room, and the antlers glowed brighter, illuminating the grotesque, spectral figures that surrounded him. The figures were the spirits of animals he had hunted and killed, their eyes filled with anguish and reproach. They advanced upon him, their ghostly forms growing more menacing with each passing moment. Jacob could feel their cold, ethereal hands closing in around his throat, choking the life out of him. In his final moments, Jacob realized the truth of the forest curse. The spirits of the woods were exacting their revenge for the life he had taken. His greed and arrogance had led him down a dark path, and now he would pay the ultimate price. As the first light of dawn broke through the window, the spirits of the forest disappeared, leaving Jacob's lifeless body behind. The antlers of the white stag dimmed, and the forest reclaimed its stolen treasure. From that day forward, the legend of the white stag and the curse of the forest became a cautionary tale among the hunters of the region. They learned to respect the mysteries of the wilderness and to cherish its beauty without seeking to possess it. And deep in the heart of the ancient forest, the white stag continued to roam, a guardian spirit of the woods, forever elusive and untouchable by those who would dare to harm it. Thanks for watching. To support us, please like and subscribe.